There it is. Wow.
Scene has shifted.
That is a lot to take in.
You're right, it is.
Maya?
Yep, you're up.
So... I just think it's really interesting that since we got here, we've been having these kind of like exposition dumps from Kumasawa.
Yeah.
Like, she's the only one who does any kind of like aside to the audience.
Besides the audience with like the text across the screen rather than
like her actually saying something or like as having it part of the narration.
Yes.
So there's definitely something special about her.
Yes.
Something kind of like
maybe
all-seeing and omniscient,
maybe.
Which is kind of freaking me out.
Possibly.
But I guess we'll find out.
Maybe not. We'll see.
We crossed the hall again on our way to the entrance. As we did, we once again saw that witch's portrait. However, the word saw is probably not the best word to describe that experience. It was more like our eyes were drawn to it. That woman's eyes, with their sage-like glamour, definitely had the power to make those who looked at her stand rooted to the spot.
Majo, Beatrice.
Beatrice!
Yes.
本当かね?
バトラ信じてない?
Back when he had asked what this picture was, the first person to tell him it was Beatrice had been Maria. Therefore, when Butler showed signs of doubt, Maria must have felt that Butler didn't have much faith in her. Of course, that's not what Butler meant. Maria ran up to the portrait and began banging it on a plate below it. Maybe the title of the portrait was written there. Maria, trying to prove that she wasn't lying, obstinately continued to hit the plate.
ああ、悪い悪い。別にマリアが言ったのを疑ったわけじゃないぜ。
バトラ納得。
When he patted Maria's head and apologized, she seemed to accept it, sticking out her chest and proudly ooh. This narration is in third person. Like it switches back and forth because I feel like usually we would have it from Butler's point of view. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but
no, that's a good observation.
Just thought it was interesting.
That's a good observation.
何? 我が最愛の魔女ベアトリーチェ、懐かしき故郷を貫くってなんだこの怪しげな長い碑文はよ。
The plate did have the title of the portrait written on it, but it was much too big to contain only that. Beneath the title, what looked like a long epitaph was also written. As I skimmed over it, I was taken aback by the array of unnerving words that jumped out at me.
すげえだろそれ。じいさまが書かせたものだよ。意味深だろ？マリア知ってる。黄金の隠し場所。
おいおい、後ろ宮家の隠し黄金の話か？そりゃまた懐かしい話だね。っていうか兄貴、これマジなのか？
これを書かせたおじいさまは、この絵とこの碑文に関しては何も語ってくれないんだ。でも親類たちの間では、おじいさまの黄金の隠し場所を記したもので、この謎を解いた者に家督と黄金のすべてを譲るという意味ではないかと。マリア聞いた、マリア聞いた。黄金いっぱいいっぱい。さてな、10トンの金塊なんてね、私はちょいと眉唾だけどな。
しかしよ、こんな碑文を読んじまうとマジかなって気になっちまうな。
Who wrote that? A Nigerian prince? 10 tons of gold bars? What, does he want my bank account information?
Maybe. Maybe. I think I already explained grandfather's upbringing, but let me also mention the Ushiromiya family's legend of the gold. Grandfather succeeded the Ushiromiya family after it had been almost totally destroyed in the Great Kanto earthquake, and by successfully riding the stormy seas after the war, managed to accumulate great wealth. That much of the story everyone knows. However, this is where the strange part of the story begins. part of it is closely tied to Grandfather's black magic hobby, so its credibility is extremely low, but, well, wait until the end before you doubt or make fun of it. After the war, Grandfather successfully predicted what the future would hold. His big gamble paid off and he accumulated a vast store of wealth. But there is a mysterious legend about how he gained the funds in the first place. Grandfather came from a branch family and had no connections in the business world or the financial world. Even though he later built connections with the occupying forces, in the beginning he was supposedly a nameless person who had not yet gained anyone's trust. Money can only be gathered based on trust. There's no way anyone would lend money to an untrustworthy person. How did Grandfather, whose trustworthiness was zero, manage to obtain the large amount of funds in the first place? It is said that, when asked that question, Grandfather answered like this. One fateful day, I encountered the Golden Witch, Beatrice. He then went on about how he continued to research alchemy and techniques for summoning demons in order to become a great mage. And the entity summoned as a result of the demon-calling ritual was the Golden Witch, Beatrice. He then said that he made a contract where, in exchange for his own soul, he would receive fortune and honor. The witch then granted Grandfather 10 tons of gold. Grandfather used this gold as collateral to prepare a vast quantity of funds, and then used that to multiply his wealth by several times and revive the Ushiromiya family. It seems that this story is so old that our parents had already been told it when they were still children. So, our parents, when they were little, explored this island in various ways, believing that the gold that Grandfather had received from the witch might be hidden somewhere. However, since there was the danger of them getting lost in the abandoned forest, Grandmother or someone began to spread the story that the witch lived in the forest, and approaching it was too dangerous.
そんな話があったな。俺たちも小さい頃、親からその話を聞かされて、森で迷ってワンワン泣いて、使用人さんに見つけてもらって、親にめちゃくちゃ怒られたんじゃなかったっけ？懐かしいぜ。
バカだったよな。だってよ、じいさまはその資本金で儲けた挙句でこの島を買うんだぜ。この島に来る前から黄金を持ってたってことになるじゃねえか。この島にあるわけがないぜ。
そうとも限らないよ。その黄金が元からこの島に隠されていて、それを確実に自分のものにするためにこの島を丸々買い取ったとかね。
So they're all in the dark too about
何しろ10トンもあるんだもん。安全な場所に移すより隠し場所そのものを確保する方が現実的だよ。
この碑文を書かせたのは2年前。それもじいさま自身ってなると、なるほど。黄金伝説も信憑性が増してくるじゃねえか。じいさまが後宮家復興の資本金にしたという魔女に授けられた黄金が10トン。そいつがどこかに今も眠っていて、じいさまはこの謎を解けたやつに全部を譲ろうって。へえ、じいさまらしいセンスというか、なんというか。
There it is.
マジならなんとも景気のいい話だぜ。
The epitaph carved into the plate was very mysterious, something like a poem or a song. Its sentences were incredibly disturbing, filled with signs of Grandfather's black magic hobby, and truly in bad taste, but it could definitely be viewed as a puzzle which, if solved, could lead to the place where the gold was hidden.
そういうつもりなのかどうか、おじいさまの胸中は想像もつかないけどね。一つ言えるのは、このうさんくさい碑文をおじいさまは一族全員に告示するかのようにここに掲示したこと。そして黄金の存在はほのめかしながらも、未だにその隠し場所について一切触れないこと。そこから親たちが想像を膨らませて、おじいさまの知恵比べに違いないって言い出した。
欲の皮が突っ張ってるうちの親父あたりだろうぜ。こんな世まいことを真に受けてるなんてよ。じいさまの黒魔術趣味はバカにしてるくせに、この隠し黄金の話だけは信じてやがる。調子のいい話さ。
確かに現実的な話じゃないよね。当時無名で何のコネクションもなかったおじいさまに無償で莫大な金塊を融資する人物なんているわけがない。 それがいたからこそおじいさまはそのスポンサーを魔女と呼んだというなら考えられない話じゃないけど。
So it's possible that it's not actually supernatural at all.
Yeah, I mean, Beatrice could have just been some rich princess that gave them money. I mean,
we don't know.
You could just be calling her a witch as a metaphor.
でもよ、10トンだぜ、10トン。一体現金に直したらいくらくらいになるんだ？っていうか、とんでもない量になるはずだぜ。
とんでもない量だよ。
A ton is 2,000 pounds, right?
Yeah.
So that's like 20,000 pounds of gold.
Yeah,
That is
ridiculous.
人
insane.
類が有史以来発掘した黄金はせいぜい10万トンって言われてる。
Huh.
人類の歴史が手にした黄金の1万分の1を個人が手にしてるっていうのはとてつもないことだよ。それが一箇所にあり、しかもそれをおじいさまにポンと貸し出せるような魔女。ただものじゃないね。
私はよ、その10トンって数字ももはや嘘くさいと思ってるぜ。第一よ、じいさま以外に見たやつはいないんだろ。仮に気前のいい魔女が実在して黄金を貸したとしても、それは10は10でも10キロぐらいの間違いじゃねえのか。10キロでも相当いい金額になるはずだぜ。
10キロの黄金っていくら？
Maria, who couldn't keep up and felt like she was being spoken to in riddles, finally found a place where she could ask us a question. A question which I also wanted to ask right then. Whether I hear 10 kilos or 10 tons, I know that it's an incredible amount, but I couldn't put a number on exactly how incredible. George Aniki folded his arms and tried to remember the market price of gold.
さあ、金も相場の影響を受けるから何とも言えないし、純度や鋳造先の信用によっても変わってくる。換金に手数料もかかるし。ただ、希少金属であることは間違いなくて、このまま採掘が進めば、人類はあと半世紀ほどで全てを掘り尽くしてしまうんじゃないかって憶測もある。デタラメに言って、1キロあたり200万円程度の価値はあるんじゃないかと思うね。
ひゅー！私よ、10キロってのは今適当に言って控えめな数字なんだけどよ、それでも2000万円の価値があるってことになるじゃねえかよ。
Damn.
Which is like $200,000.
Is it? Huh.
マリア、体重28キロ。
ということは、マリアちゃんと同じ重さの黄金なら、その価値は5000万円を超えるって計算になるね。
Because 100 yen is
そりゃたまげるな。
Okay.
10トンならいくらだ？ 10 キロで2000万が1000倍だから、はあ、200億円か？こりゃたまらねえや。
200 million.
Yeah. How much is 20 billion yen actually worth? We would have to measure it by putting it in terms we could understand. I mean, they say that wages over a lifetime are 200 million yen. You grow up and work like crazy, sacrificing your life for your company, and as you approach old age, are finally freed. And all that together, including the retirement money, comes out at 200 million yen. In other words, that is the cash equivalent of a human's life. No, you could even call it the price of a life. We were talking about a sum so enormous that it would require 100 of those lives. Assuming you work for 40 years from age 20 to age 60, then it's equal to 4,000 years of work wages. It's a sum of money you could finally accumulate after working every day starting from the Jomon period.
200億円ってすごい？
ああ、すげえよ。マリアの大好きなショートケーキだったら、多分一生かかっても食い切れないくらい買えるぜ。
でも200億円という現金ならいざ知れず、それと同等の金塊が一ところにあるなんてとても現実的とは思えないね。さっきも言った通り、黄金は非常に重くて財産をまとめておくにはちょっと便利とは思えないよ。ものすごい額面の有価証券とか、ものすごく価値のある宝石とか、そういうものなら考えられなくもないけれど、 戦時中の混乱期に自分の資産を持ち運べるよう全て宝石などに変えた人たちがいたのは有名な話だからね。でも黄金で資産を備蓄したというのはなかなか聞かない。
確かに重いけどよ、国際的に一番信用されてて価値も安定してるし、証券とかだったら国が滅びちまったら紙切れになっちまうわけだし。
そういう考え方もあるね。でも 10kg のインゴット一つでも体感重量は相当のものだよ。聞いたことない？ 50kg の人間は背負えても 50kg の俵は担げないって。それだけの莫大な重量の金塊を個人が所有するリスクと手間は計り知れないね。
ってことはつまり200億円の札束がうなってるって話ならともかく、200億円分の黄金が山積みになってるってのはちょいと現実味がないわけだな。
そういうことになるね。黄金伝説なんて響きはとても面白いんだけど、そもそも10トンの黄金という時点で少々無理があるね。
Could be. Maybe.
そうやってリズムで考えるとみるみる嘘くさくなっていくぜ。夢のない話さ。
でもそこは何しろあのおじいさまだからね。親切なお金持ちからの融資を大げさに吹聴して魔女から授かった10トンの黄金なんて例え方をしたのかもしれないよ。10トンという数字も象徴的な感じがするしね。
つまり借りた金のありがたさは10トンの黄金に匹敵する価値があった。
じいさまに大金持ちの勇敢マダムが気前よく恵んでくれて、その後夫人を魔女と呼んだ。
Jessica's example isn't bad. If someone was generous enough to lend a huge sum of money to grandfather when his trustworthiness was still zero, she would certainly be someone worthy of being called a witch. Furthermore, grandfather later used that money to build a vast amount of wealth. With such an incredible ability to judge people, again, she might well be fittingly called a witch. Also, since she went to the trouble of lending all that money, she might also have enthusiastically guided how it was spent. Come to think of it, the idea to get involved with the occupying forces and profit from the Korean War demands might have come from the witch as well. With all that considered, saying that he received wealth and honor from a witch might actually be a fair description.
なるほどな。ってことはつまりこの魔女様は後宮家復興のための資金を恵んでくださった。となりゃじい様が感謝の気持ちを込めてこんだけでかい絵を描かせて掲げさせたってのも、なるほど、おかしい話じゃないのかもな。
ひょっとするとよ、当の本人は見るからに魔女っぽいばあさんだったかもしれないぜ。それをじい様が美化してこんな美人に描いてくれたってのは考えられる話さ。案外当の本人に会ってみたらこんなに美人じゃないかもしれねえな。
ありえるね。ベアトリーチェって名前はいかにも洋風だけど、僕たち一族の名前がみんな洋風であることを考えると、このベアトリーチェって名前も日本人名を無理やり洋風にアレンジしたものなのかもしれないよ。
なるほどなるほど。この美人は絵の中にしかいないってわけだな。それじゃああの立派そうな胸は揉めそうにないぜ。
I knew it. I knew at least one more time it had to pop up.
はなっから魔女なんておかしいんだよな。そんなのが地球上のどこにいるってんだ。
As I laughed and made fun of the witch in an attempt to differentiate myself from the kid I was 6 years ago who was afraid of the witch of the forest, Maria tugged on my sleeve. The strength with which she did so displayed a little annoyance.
なんだよ、マリア。
ベアトリーチェはいる。
Maria stared up at me. She had on her usual sour look, but I could tell she was angry because of the color of her eyes.
魔女いる。魔女はいる。
なんだよ、そりゃいるだろうよ。テレビをつけりゃアニメとかによ。
いる。魔女はいる。
I started to feel pressured, not knowing why Maria was jumping on me like this. Then, Jessica tapped me on the shoulder and told me in a small voice.
バカだな。子供の夢打ち砕いてんじゃねえぜ。マリアは魔女とかベアトリーチェとかが確かに存在するって信じてんだよ。
確かマリアちゃんは学校の文集に将来なりたいものは魔女って書いたんだっけ？
Oh no.
Oh boy. Maria nodded seriously. I don't like where this is going. Tears started to run from the corners of her eyes. I see. To a girl who wants to become a witch in the future, this Beatrice is proof that witches do exist in this world, and is also someone who she admires and strives to be like. For those of you who couldn't tell, the controller shook every time she said exist. It's very, very intense.
いるよ、魔女は。お兄ちゃんは信じるよ。
George Aniki kneeled down and held Maria's head. Watching this, Jessica poked me in the side. So that's what it is. It's basically like I just dropped the bomb that Santa Claus doesn't exist.
What?
Wait a minute.
No.
Santa Claus doesn't exist, but Kumasawa-chan exists. And she's very,
I'm Santa Claus.
Oh, that's amazing. Alright, sorry. It's basically like, I just dropped the bomb that Santa Claus doesn't exist.
What?
In front of it. Damn it. Of a child who believes in him on Christmas Eve. I'm not the kind of guy who likes to shatter kids' dreams.
Well, you just did.
Too late.
悪かったぜ。別にマリアの夢にケチをつけたわけじゃねえんだ。ベアトリーチェはいるよな。今もこの島の森の中に住んでいて、夜な夜なこの屋敷で何をやってるのか覗き見しに来るんだろ。だから森には入っちゃいけない。夜はいつまでも暗い森を眺めていてはいけない。森の魔女ベアトリーチェに見つかってしまうかもしれないから。ばあさまがそう言ってたんだもんな。
It's gotta be a lot more than she's just a little kid who believes
Battler
witches
laughs.
exist.
Maria laughs. George laughs. They all laugh. The portrait laughs.
They burn the portrait.
本当にバトラーは信じる？
There's gotta be so much more to this than that she's just a little kid and that she really wants to believe that witches exist. Like, she must have some kind of connection to the island or to Beatrice that is unspoken and they're not telling us. Mark my words.
Mark your words.
Right now.
On this day.
This day, October 5th.
ああ、信じるぜ。
Yes.
ケチをつけて悪かったよ。ほら、仲直りしようぜ。
I stuck out my hand and Maria grabbed it with her tiny hand, and we made up. Maria didn't grumble any more than that, so George, Aniki, and Jessica were relieved.
あら、皆様ここにいらっしゃられたんですか。てっきり海岸へ行かれたとばかり。
Oh my god, she's adorable. Shannon-chan, carrying a basket, was surprised to find us all gathered in front of the portrait.
シャナンか。いやさ、バトラはベアトリーチェの肖像画を初めて見るからさ。まあ見とれてたってわけだぜ。
そうですね。見とれちゃいますね。ベアトリーチェ様って本当にお綺麗です。さぞや親方様を虜になさったろうと思います。
パトロン説の他にもおじい様の初恋の人だという説もあるんだ。どちらにせよ彼女に出会ってから数十年を経ているだろうにもかかわらず、今なお心の中に大きく居座り続けているんだから、それは今なお虜にしているということなんだろうね。
やれやれ、これじゃばあさまはさぞや嫉妬しただろうぜ。
私はよく知らねえけど、やっぱりそういうのはあったらしいぜ。ばあさまは金髪の浮気相手がいると信じてたらしいな。
ほう、いい匂い。シャロンからいい
Maria, sniffing, approached the basket Shannon-chan was holding with interest. Now that you mention it, I do notice a fragrant scent with the essence of vanilla.
It's mackerel.
申し訳ございません。
Too soon.
熊沢さんからこれを皆さんにお届けするように言づかりました。
なんだろう。
That sounds gross.
素敵だね。クッキーだ。
Hey!
Cookie da.
Mackerel cookies.
クッキー食べたい。クッキー食べたい。ふぅ。お召し上がりいただけますよ。でも、
Unsure whether it was really acceptable to serve cookies in a place like this in front of the portrait, Shannon-chan sent us a glance which seemed to ask what we wanted to do. Well, thinking about it, yeah, that would probably be bad manners.
マリア、ここじゃなくてよそで食べようぜ。クッキーをお弁当にピクニックに行こう。
ピクニック行こう。ピクニック行こう。クッキー食べれるなら行こう。
そうだな。ちょっと表の空気を吸いに行くか。魔女様の御前でつまみ食いもねえもんだぜ。
そうだ、もともと私たちは浜辺に行こうって言ってたんじゃねえか。行こうぜ行こうぜ。
シャノンちゃん、申し訳ないんだけど、腰を下ろせる敷物と水筒にお茶を入れてきてもらうのをおね。
はい、かしこまりました。
Shannon-chan received her instructions and gracefully bowed before retracing her steps. We headed for the beach on our own. Everyone headed for the entrance in a group. Feeling as though that witch was staring down at our backs, I turned around once more.
アトラ、まだ信じてない？
いや、信じるぜ。その方が夢があるしな。黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェがじい様に10トンの黄金を授けた。それで、その黄金がどこかに眠っているかもしれない。しかもそいつを、じい様は怪しげな碑文に書き残し、こういうロマンはあった方がいいってもんさ。
200億円の黄金か。私たち4人で山分けしたってとんでもない金額になるな。
一人頭50億円か。すごいね。それだけあったらどんな事業でも起こせそうだよ。
Hey, we could pay off our debts.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That would be nice.
いや、そもそも働かずに生涯を優雅に過ごせるだろうね。
50億円よりクッキー
マリアには金よりクッキーだな。
She's got a priority straight.
しかし、50億円か。
バカバカしい。
Back to some family quarreling.
親父殿の黄金伝説を本当に信じているのかね。
It's so interesting how well the music like sets the mood and how quickly it feels like things change going back and forth.
Yep.
魔女が黄金を与えた云々はさすがに信じねえさ。だが黄金の話だけは間違いじゃない。
お父様が出自不明の金塊を持っていたことは複数の筋から確認されているわ。死んだマルソーの会長は生前、お父様に某所で積み上げられた金塊を実際に見せられたという。お父様はそれを指して10トン分あるとはっきり明言したわ。
老いぼれのざれ言じゃないか。親父殿と一緒に存在しない黄金の存在をでっち上げただけだ。取るにも足らない。
存在せん黄金にあないな軍資金は集まらへんで。会長さんは生前その真摯なお人柄であれだけ大勢の財界人から尊敬を集めたお人や。詐欺の片棒なんか担がへん。
兄貴、マルソーの会長は確かに見たんだ。10トンの黄金をはっきりとその目で。しかも親父はそのインゴットの一つを任意で抜き取らせ、それは10キロのインゴットで、鑑定結果は純度49。インゴット表面には後宮家の家紋である片翼の和紙が刻印されていたという。
後宮の黄金伝説は瞬く間に財界のフィクサーたちの間に広がったわ。 鋳造元不明の黄金は換金率が悪い。ボロ儲けのチャンスだと思った彼らはそれを担保に認め、結果お父様は莫大な融資を受けることができた。
バカバカしいにも程があるじゃないか。お前たちはいくつになるんだ。まだそんな子供の頃のおとぎ話を真に受けているのかね。第一、その10トンの黄金の証拠はどこにあるんだ。
He could very easily be covering his own ass right now.
Yep.
親父殿と親交の深かったごく一部の人間のザレ言だけじゃないか。もちろん口伝だけさ。でもよ兄貴。
Maybe he's already found the gold.
Yeah.
親父が調達した莫大な金は、それに見合う担保が必要だった。仮に黄金が出までも、それに匹敵する価値あるお宝を親父が見せたのは、紛れもない事実じゃねえのかい。都市空間の親父殿が作った黄金元素をさ、ありもしない黄金をあるかに振る舞い、スポンサーたちを騙したんだ。一世一代の大博打だったのだろう。運よくその資産の運用に成功できた。もし当時の外需拡大がなかったら後ろ宮家の再興はならず、親父殿は正規のペテン師として追われていただろう。
じゃあクラウス兄さんは黄金など最初から存在せず。
もちろんさ。だから十分な成功を収めた後には黄金元素など面倒なだけだった。だから親父殿は魔女だの黒魔術だのとわけのわからないことを後に言い出して信憑性を薄めたのさ。つまり黄金元素がでっち上げであることを明かしたのだよ。
Unless you've already found the gold, you dum-dum.
魔女に黄金を授かったなどと言えば、もはや誰も黄金の存在を信じたりはしまい。あるいはお前たちのために言い出したのかもしれないな。なのに、ありもしない黄金を遺産分配に含めて議論しようというバカな息子たちが現れる。ローザ。まさかお前までこんなでっち上げを信じてるって言うんじゃないだろうな。
私はお父様が本当に黄金を持っていたかどうかを確かめることはできない。でもお父様の4人の子供の一人として正当な分を主張したいだけよ。
ほう、ローザも言うようになったじゃないか。なるほど。お前たちはこう言いたいわけかね。私が黄金を独り占めしようとしていると。
兄さんが莫大な軍資金を調達したのは事実。それがお父様の個人資産の横領では断じてありえないというなら、つまりはそういうことよ。
兄貴はすでに10トンの金塊を見つけてるんじゃないかって、俺たちはそう見てるのさ。バカバカしい。そんなものは元より存在しない。
じゃあ説明なさいよ。
Then how have you found the money to fund all your projects?
お父様の財産の横領、お父様の隠し黄金、そのどちらでもないならどうやってあれだけの軍資金を調達できたっていうの？
私にも政界財界に友人が多くいてね、彼らから協力を得ただけに過ぎんよ。それについてお前たちに説明する義務はない。分かっているだろう。話せぬ方面の筋もある。兄貴がそうだと言い張るんならそれでいいさ。でもよ兄貴、親父は長くない。来年の今日まで生きてるなんて誰にも保証できねえんだぜ。親父が死ねばその時点で遺産相続だ。俺たちは全員の立場から中立な弁護士と会計士を立てて親父の財政状況を調査させるぜ。
その時お父様の資産に兄さんが不当な干渉をしていることが発覚したならお分かりね。
何の話だかさっぱりわからんで、妻でなくても憤慨したい気持ちだ。
お父さんの黄金はもちろんお父さんの財産や。表に出せん金やっちゅうのも分かっとる。 しかし4人に公平な権利があるはずや。
つまり兄貴が黄金を独り占めしていないかどうか、兄貴についても財務状況を調査させてもらうぜってことなのさ。
いい機会じゃない。兄さんの言うところの友人知人にバックアップしてもらったというところを証明なさいよ。そうすれば兄さんは潔白。私たちはくだらない疑いを持ってしまったことを潔く謝れるわ。ねえローザ。
そうね。クラウス兄さんこそ話をはぐらかしてるわ。やましいところがないというなら証明してくれればいいだけの話なのに、兄さんはまるで取り合おうとしてくれない。
What are you thinking about this?
I don't know. I mean, I think they're right to question him. I think there's a high possibility that assuming the gold exists, that he has it and he used it to fund his projects and to pay off his debts. But it doesn't seem like at least to me, like it doesn't seem like he's very scheming, like that type of person. And the fact that everyone's against him kind of makes me think that maybe he's innocent, but we'll see. I don't know.
だがまあ兄貴の立場にも配慮するさ。親父の名代ということで俺たちより一つ多く責任を背負ってるところがあるだろう。今まで散々気楽に過ごしてきた俺たちがそれを察しないでブーブー言うのはこりゃ。
ほう、さっきから脅されたり持ち上げられたりと忙しい。本題に入りたまえ。
つまりな、お父さんの財産をあれこれ調べて重箱の隅をつっつくんはブスやないかって話なんや。クラウス兄さんの言う通り、うまく説明できん金の動きもあるやろ。そこを理解した上でわしらは兄さんに相談を持ってきたんや。お互いにとって悪うない相談や。
相談？ほう。
遺産分配時に今日まで親父の面倒を見てきてくれた兄貴のご苦労を最大限に汲み取り。
間違えないでよ。別に私たちの権利を放棄するって言ってるわけじゃないのよ。ただその権利を主張する際に兄さんの立場に立った寛大な理解があってもいいんじゃないかしらということなのよ。
They're also shrewd.
Yeah.
つまり条件を飲んでくれたらわしらは遺産分配時にお父さんの財務状況調査をクラウス兄さんに一任してもいいっちゅうこっちゃ。
Okay, I see.
Blackmail.
So they're striking a deal now.
Yeah. Bribery, blackmail. The works.
All of the siblings from Ava downward suspected that Kraus was trying to steal their father's wealth. In that situation, letting Kraus report on the state of their father's wealth by himself was extremely contradictory and a huge concession. If, as they claimed, Kraus was actually embezzling money, Kraus would be able to hide that fact. Besides that, it would also be possible for him to control the distribution of the inheritance in a manner favorable to himself. Kraus, also realizing that this sounded too good to be true, couldn't help but feel doubt. He had to worry about what they would ask in return for such a compromise.
ほう。信用ゼロの私に長兄としての信頼を返してくれるというのか。その見返りは何だね。
同じ兄弟としての公平な権利さ。俺たちの兄貴は親父の財産をかすめ取るようなやつじゃない。だがしかし兄貴に融資するパトロンも存在しないとなりゃ、つまりこういうことなら兄弟は納得するわけさ。
兄さんは10トンの黄金を見つけ、それを担保に軍資金を作った。そう、お父様がかつてそうしたようにね。
そういうことならお父さんの財務状況におかしな点は一切あらへん。クラウス兄さんはずっとお父さんの世話をしてきた高校息子や。そないな人を信用せんわけにはいかへん。
But they literally just were mistrusting him.
They're pretending like it didn't happen.
That's what it seems like.
回りくどくて分かりづらいな。 もっとはっきり具体的に言いたまえ。
条件の一つ目、まず兄貴は親父の黄金を見つけていたことを認めること。
ありもしない黄金を私が持っていると認めろと。
条件2、その黄金について兄弟の取り分を認め、これを支払うこと。
バカな。ありもしない200億の黄金について一人頭50億、合計150億を支払えというのか。バカバカしい。
最後まで聞きなあれ。そない大金出てくるのは分かっとる。できへん取引はするつもりないで。もちろん黄金の取り分についてもクラウス兄さんの今日までのご苦労を十分にねぎらって換算するつもりや。
条件3、黄金の分配は後宮本家当主跡継ぎの肩書きに 50%、 残りを兄弟の正当な取り分として分割。もちろんクラウス兄さんもこれには含めるわよ。
200億のうち125億を兄貴に、25億をエヴァ姉さんに、25億を俺に、25億をローザに。
ありがたくて涙が出る分配じゃないか。存在しない黄金のためにお前たちに75億支払えというのかね。
何よ、兄さんの取り分は私たちの5倍じゃない。私なら踊り上がっちゃう好条件よ。
条件の4、分配金は親父の死亡時に遺産分配に含めて清算する。ただし手付金として俺たちの取り分の 10% を即納してもらう。支払いは来年3月までだ。
どやクラウス兄さん、お父さんの財産をめぐる信頼を回復する絶好のチャンスやないか。さすがに75億の大金はお父さんが亡くなったからやないと無理やろ。だが手付けの7億半はなんとかできんこともないんとちゃうか。
半年で7億ってのはちょいとしんどい話だが、政界財界に友人が多いってのが自慢の兄貴ならなんとかできるだろう。
本当なら今すぐ75億を一括で払ってもらいたいところよ。でも兄さんの立場に配慮してとりあえず1割を納める誠意を見せてくれたら、残りの9割は遺産分配時に持ち越してくれていいってことなの。
Why are they taking such a cut is my question. Like, why are they giving them 12.5 billion and just splitting up 7.5 billion among themselves?
Because I think they're trying to get him to admit that the gold exists, and they're trying to do that by saying, listen, tell us that it exists and you can get a bigger share of the money as...
So you think that they'll be like, haha, we lied?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
They're promising him a much greater share.
Right. It's kind of sweetening the deal, because they would rather have a smaller share of the gold than nothing at all.
That's true.
So that's kind of the way I see it.
ね、1割程度の誠意なら兄さんにだって示せるんじゃない？
親父殿の財政状況調査を私に一任する権利を7億5千万で売りつけようというのかね。上等じゃないか。お前たちも成長したものだ。この私に取引を持ちかけられるようになるとは。
これらを兄さんが飲むなら、私たち兄弟はお父様の財産状況調査を兄さんに一任する。ただしその調査結果は公弁の対象となる。当然よね。75億分私たちの取り分が減るように調整されちゃったら悲しいもの。
原則的に文句は言わねえつもりだ。兄貴が綺麗にやってくれたならそれでいい。よっぽど露骨なことをしなけりゃ俺たちはことを荒立てるつもりなんかねえんだぜ。俺たちだって早く遺産は欲しい。いつまでもグダグダして取りっぱぐれたくねえんだ。
公弁された場合の再調査は誰がするのかね。
兄さんでいいわ。多分これが兄弟で合議する最初で最後の機会だもの。そんなことにはならないと信じてる。
ローザもたまには言うわね。
That Kraus was not trusted whatsoever as the oldest sibling was by now so obvious that it requires no explanation. The formerly tyrannical oldest brother would always abuse his privileges and infringe upon the other siblings' shares. In response to that, the other three, now adults, were for the first time striking back at him by working together.
申し訳ないが、条件はまだ続くんや。条件5。この取り決めはお父さんの遺言状に優先する。後になってこの取り決めが保護になるような遺言が出てきちゃかなわんちゅうこっちゃな。
入念じゃないか。
As Will says, I offer everything to Kraus.
なら質問だが、仮に本当に黄金が見つかった場合、どうするのかね。
それに対する支払いを兄貴が済ませてる以上、俺たちは本当に黄金が出てこようがどうでもいいことさ。俺たちの取り分は先払いってな感じになるわけだからな。
夢があっていいじゃない。この島をリゾート化するつもりなんでしょ。その工事の途中でひょっこり黄金が見つかるかもしれないじゃない。
Ava let out a high-pitched laugh. Kraus watched without even flinching.
条件に7をつけてもらおう。私以外の兄弟が黄金を発見した場合、速やかに私に引き渡すこと。
もちろん保証するわよ。
She's freaking me out, man. Her voice is just... Insignificant details. The others, who were forcing Kraus to pay money for some non-existent gold, would of course not insure Kraus's portion if they actually found the gold. From the beginning, this deal had been nothing more than a threat directed at Kraus. While the truth might be different, the probability that Kraus was embezzling his father's assets was extremely high. When at last Kinzo faced death and it came time for the inheritance to be distributed, surely some unpleasant facts would come to light. That situation would likely be a fatal wound to Kraus. They had latched onto that weak point, and were threatening their brother under the veil of compromise, trying to wring out a huge sum of money. However, they had let one thing slip their minds. The three of them had forgotten that their oldest sibling, who they couldn't defeat unless they banded together, was a very nimble thinker when it came to being crafty. Kraus relaxedly let out a gloating laugh as he spoke to Ava, who could not hide her smile, so certain she was of her victory.
とても良い話じゃないか。私もお前たちとの関係が疎遠になっていたことには非常に心を痛めていた。この条件を飲むことによって兄弟間の関係が再び有効なものにできるなら、喜んで話に乗らせてもらおうじゃないか。喜べローズ。取引は成立だ。
Rose's expression dimmed. When her brother started talking like this, the conversation would never change for the better. Ava was also sensitive enough to realize this. Therefore, even though Kraus had obediently accepted the deal, she was unable to wipe away her feeling of insecurity.
嫌に素直ね。兄さんらしくもないわ。
それはひどいじゃないか。私に下心があるというのかね。あるわけもないさ。お前たちと同じだ。
I'm just like all of you. It felt as though only that part was emphasized. The color of Rudolph's face darkened. I have a plan, just like all of you. That's what it sounded like to him. That gave him a sense of urgency. Trying to bring this near-finished discussion to a conclusion, he rushed to wrap it up.
ならいいんだ。じゃあ兄貴、ここにサインをもらえるか？今の話を書き出した俺たちの誓約書だ。
I wonder if they were doing that on the boat ride over or something.
That would be funny.
人数分ある。同じ内容に全員がサインする。
Rudolph took 4 written contracts out of his breast pocket that had the details of their deal written on them.
クラウス兄さんの提案した条件7も もちろん今から追記するで。安心したってな。
兄貴、ペン使うか？
Rudolph took a fountain pen out of his breast pocket and offered it to Kraus. Kraus made as if to accept it, but then with a small laugh drew back his hand without taking it and spoke.
実はこの取り決めを確かに履行するために1点だけ修正を提案したい。
When Kraus said that one sentence, all of the siblings felt the same time. All of the siblings felt at the same time as though something annoying was creeping up their backs.
ダメよ。もう決まった話よ。黙ってサインを。
エヴァ、何を焦っているんだね。もちろんサインはする。お前たちに黄金の分け前、75億円分を約束する。親父殿の遺産分配の時、きれいさっぱり清算することも約束する。だが、一点だけどうしても譲歩してもらいたい部分があるのだよ。
何の話だよ。どの点が気に入らねえってんだ？
分け前の1割、7億5千万円を即納する点だよ。お前たちの指摘通り、私の財政状況は決して裕福ではない。数々の先行投資によって未来に必ず回収できると保証されながらも、今のこの時点では火の車であることは認めなければならない。つまり今すぐに動かせる金は全くないということだ。私は無能で詳細の嗅覚も鈍い。お前たちの言うところの弱り目の私には7億半も半年で動かせる力はないということだよ。
Yeah, I feel like that was asking a lot.
そんなはずはないでしょ。いい加減なことを言ってこの場をごまかす気？
遺産分配時に全て一括で清算する。1割を即納する条件を削除したまえ。それが私にサインさせるための唯一の条件。
クラウス兄さん、この1割はな、あくまでも兄さんの誠意を図る数字なんやで。本当なら取引の余地もない話や。そこを100歩譲った上で、とりあえず1割の誠意でこの場を丸く収めちゃるっちゅう大サービスなんやで。
Well, what if he doesn't even have the money? Like, that's not... he can't do it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what they're really expecting of him. I guess they figure he has the gold, and so he can give them the money, but he's obviously telling them that he doesn't. Like, he doesn't know if it exists.
そう説明した上で、そこを断るっちゅうんは、互いの信頼関係にちょいと影を落とすんとちゃいますか？
Hideyoshi had a humble expression on his face and had his hands clasped together. But his eyes were not calm at all. Kraus had already seen through the shadow in the depths of those eyes.
お前たちは何を焦っているのかね。それとも何に怯えているのかね。どうぞ、私にだけは教えてくれんかね。他の兄弟たちには内緒でこっそりと。
別に私は。
よせよ兄貴。俺たちは兄貴がサインするかしないかしか聞いてない。妙な勘繰りも交渉もなしで。
ほう、私には交渉の余地もないと。立場が弱いのは私の方で公平な関係ではないと、そう言いたいのかね。
Shivers began to crawl up Rudolph's back. Ever since he was a child, he had never been able to overcome the height of the wall that separated him from his older brother. And now again he began to feel himself getting sucked in by it, and the long shadow it cast.
取引は公平な関係であるべきじゃないのかね。この取引は私にとっては、弟や妹たちと長いことを失ってきた信頼を取り戻し、兄弟愛を深め合うもの。それは私にとって緊急に解決したかった心のしこりだ。それが今日解決できてとても嬉しいと思う。だがお前たちもこの取引を急ぎ締結することがとても嬉しいんじゃないのかね。
Kraus stared at each of the siblings. They avoided his gaze with animal-like instinct. Only Hideyoshi was slow avoiding it, so he was caught in Krause's gaze.
秀吉兄さん、あなたの会社非常に好調子だそうじゃないですか。トントン拍子で上場を果たし、業績も株価も右肩上がり。実にお羨ましいことです。
うちの人の話は関係ないでしょ。
だが株主たちに対する還元を怠ったのが悪かった。そして上場した時に足回りを固めきらなかったのもまずかった。気づいた時にはタチの悪い連中に自社株をだいぶ買い集められていたらしいじゃないですか。
なんでそんな話知っとるんや。
秀吉さんと同じですよ。私に融資する人間などいないと裏を取れる程度に、私も秀吉さんの裏を取れるのです。
He's got dirt.
そんな不思議があることはないじゃないですか。
Krause grinned broadly. In contrast, Hideyoshi's face was turning obviously pale. Hideyoshi's company was a fast food chain operating company that he had started from nothing. Through Hideyoshi's management efforts, performance of the business repeatedly rose and magnified, and ultimately it succeeded in becoming a stock-listed company. The greatest advantage of being in the stock-holding system is that, by selling stock certificates, a large amount of financing can be gained. That amount is far greater than the actual profits from the business. This made it an extremely effective way to gather the advanced funds needed to grow his company even further. However, in exchange for financing the company, the stockholders have certain rights. Namely, the right to observe and guide the company that they have financed in order to raise its profits above their investment. That right is guaranteed to all stockholders, and they sometimes even use it to reorganize ineffectual management. It is the right to prevent the money that they have spent financing the company from going to waste by watching the management of the company. However, if they use this right forcibly, they can eject the former management and take over the company. Because the general body of all shareholders has the power to dismiss the management and nominate new management. That right is exercised on a majority decision by the stockholders, and people who hold more stock get to cast more votes. In other words, if some person or group holds a majority of the stock, they can freely chase out the old management and make the president anyone they would like. If they want, it is even possible for them to make themselves president. Many companies, in order to prevent their stock from being bought up by malicious people and their position from being threatened, take some kind of defensive measures, such as having their own employees or people close to them buy a lot of stock certificates in order to prevent a hostile group from securing the majority. However, since Hideyoshi's company had only recently become stock-listed, they hadn't had the time to strengthen those defensive measures. No, maybe Hideyoshi himself was so engrossed in the management of his company that he hadn't realized the dangers of being stock-listed. It's hard to say whether he should be viewed as a kind-hearted and skilled manager immersed in management, or a foolish manager who had his feet swept out from under him. But in any case, there were people out there who would not let him get away with that naivety unscathed. They rapidly bought up Hideyoshi's company's stock and instantly gained a significant amount of power. They then sent an anonymous document to the shareholders and began to capture the majority. The documents read, "The current management continues to make pointless investments and is ignoring the needs of the stockholders. Let us force the current management to retire, cut the current wasted investments, and let this company be born again as one that gives more back to the stockholders." It is very difficult to make the actual state of a company's management known. They maliciously twisted the figures Hideyoshi had produced from a tiny amount of sleep and a constant concern for his company, and made him lose the trust of his stockholders. Their efforts had almost collected a majority of the stock in the company. At that point, even Hideyoshi noticed and started to buy back the stock, but the stockholders, who realized that the company was undergoing an acquisition maneuver, demanded a ridiculous price for the shares that Hideyoshi was trying to buy back. They continually tortured Hideyoshi, who had no leeway in the negotiation of the price. One of the certainties of capitalism is that value will rise when both parties vie for the same thing, and one of the certainties of democracy is that the majority controls everything. So in the end, whoever manages to buy up the most stock wins. So whoever has the most money wins. If Hideyoshi could obtain a large sum of money at this critical time, he would be able to avoid losing all of that which he had built up. Therefore, more than anything else, he wanted a lot of money right now.
All caps.
He couldn't wait for the division of Kinzo's inheritance, which may not happen for some time. We've never seen that before.
No.
No. Oh.
ルドルフの方も最近は大変だそうじゃないかね。海外は怖いとよく言うが、本当にそうらしいな。アメリカの裁判は極めて感情的に決まる。彼らは外国人に寛大な判決など出しはしない。先方と和解した方が結局は安上がりになると、弁護士に忠告を受けたんじゃないのかね。
何の話？
まあ仕事上のトラブルさ。大したことじゃない。金で切りのつく話さ。
No big deal. Kirie quickly realized what Rudolph's complicated expression meant. Her husband had gotten wrapped up in some kind of trouble without her knowledge and had been suffering alone.
その通りさ。世の中なんだって金で蹴りがつく。失った兄弟の絆だって買い戻せるようにな。アメリカは権利侵害などにはうるさい国だ。だが金さえあれば何でも和解できる。資本主義万歳だよ。
Long live capitalism.
もっとも、
Long live capitalism.
和解金は数百万ドルにも及びそうだとの噂もあるがね。
Rudolph had been building a large amount of wealth with a certain type of niche market. However, a niche is a niche. It's definitely not a sunny job. An American corporate giant was trying to accuse Rudolph's company of violating their rights. For various reasons, it was thought that winning the trial was extremely unlikely, and Rudolph was being pressed to surrender outright. But even so, there was a way to resolve it with money. If he could only pay that money, though it might be painful, he could still pick himself back up. But if he didn't pay, he'd lose everything. Therefore, more than anything else, he wanted a lot of money right now.
ローザは清く正しい妹だ。危険なマネーゲームなどには手を出さない。だが、お人よしな性分が災いしたんじゃないかね。連帯保証人は気安く引き受けるものではないと思うがね。
それはクラウス兄さんとは関係ない。
Triggered.
Wow, never seen that from her. Rosa uncharacteristically laid bare her emotions and yelled, because she had thought she had kept it a secret. As Kraus watched, he let slip a muffled laugh. There was nothing to fear. Every one of them, more than anything else,
wanted a lot of money right now.
Wow. Jeez, this is... In other words, the situation had been reversed. Because only Kraus, who they were threatening, had no urgent need for a large sum of money. Compared to that, the three who were threatening him wanted money quickly, no matter what the cost. So the longer Kraus postponed this deal, the greater the advantage to him. Kraus was very sly. He had known of their Achilles' heel from the beginning. Even so, he had not been certain. Therefore, he had hidden that until the very end, and upon closely and completely examining their attitude, he had struck back.
私もできることなら、可愛い弟や妹たちの危機に金を工面してやりたいと思っているよ。だが、残念なことに持ち合わせがなくてね。7億半もの大金が工面できるスポンサーに心当たりがあるなら。
Kraus's elated words were horribly blunt. The other siblings could do nothing more than listen, grinding their teeth. If they could think of a sponsor that convenient, they wouldn't have kept up this charade. They had entered this huge battle specifically because they had exhausted all other options.
もしお前たちがどうしてもこの兄を頼りたいというなら、 私の口利きでスポンサーを探してやってもよいのか。おっと、私にはそんなものはいないと言っていたか。それではどうにもならんね。
Krause's low, gloating laugh began to fill the parlor. The younger siblings, who had, until now, been driving their oldest brother into a corner, could do nothing more than grimace and grind their teeth.
冗談じゃないわ。兄さんに借りなんか作れるもんですか。冗談じゃない。冗談じゃない。
クラウス兄さんを頼ったらどう助けてくれるの？
言ったではないか。私にできるのは他のスポンサーを探すだけだよ。もちろん利息を融通してもらえるようには最大限交渉するがね。
ちくしょう、足元見やがって。
あなた、落ち着いて。
落ち着いてるぜ。俺は極めて冷静だぜ。クソったりが。
Kyrie grabbed her husband's hand, but that action made him feel even more pitiful, so Rudolph shook it off. Krause laughed as though seeing that made him extremely happy.
こんな時、本当に親父殿の隠し黄金が見つかればいいんだがね。そうすればすぐに25億ずつをこの場で切り分けてやれるのだが、残念残念残念至極。非常に極めて実にどうしようもなく残念だ。今宵は兄弟みんなで酒を酌み交わしながら、親父殿の隠し黄金を、ベアトリーチェの碑文の謎をみんなで解き明かしてみようじゃないかね。仲良し兄弟が4人揃えばきっと解けない謎はないはずさ。
This dude is freaking insane.
They all are.
They all are, but no one laughs like that. That isn't some kind of villain.
They're all villains.
Wow. Jeez. Kinzo.
面白いことをする。それでその突きつけた条件というのは何か。
はい。クラウス様は黄金の発見を問わずに、その分け前としてエヴァ様、ルドルフ様、ローザ様に計75億円を支払うこと。ただしその1割を3月までに支払うこと。
Nobody laughs like that either.
Yeah.
クラウスの間抜けめ、弟たちに足をさらわれるとはな。実に愉快ではないか。しかし爪が甘いようだな。
はい。クラウス様はそれをエヴァ様以下お三人が緊急に大金を用立てする必要があるためとカンパされました。
So Canon is reporting all of this to him.
Yeah.
Interesting.
その程度のことはカンパできるのか。中途半端に無能な男め。今はどうしている？
話は一度中断されました。今はベアトリーチェ様の碑文の話をされています。
私の黄金がどこに隠されているのか、その謎を解こうとか。
はい。
Kinzo set down his glasses and
奇跡
snorted.
の成就が先か。愚か者どもが黄金を暴くのが先か。実に見ものではないか。愚か者どもが我が謎を解き明かしたなら、その時は私の全ての敗北だ。我が屍を骨のひとかけらまでしゃぶり尽くすがいい。愚か者どもの貪欲さが偉大なる魔法に奇跡を宿らせるのだ。 だがもし奇跡の成就が先だったならベアトリーチェは再びよみがえる。私が半生をかけて追い求めたあの美少がよみがえるのだ。
So, there's some kind of miracle that's going to happen, and Kinzo needs them to not find the gold before that happens.
Yes.
For the miracle to occur.
Yes.
Wow, okay.
It's a miracle.
Right. This is getting good.
Yeah.
There it is.
奇跡を落とす聖なる夜がやってくるぞ。悪魔たちとのゲームが始まるぞ。私はきっと打ち勝つ。絶対に生き残る。他の奴らの命はくれてやる。富も名誉も財産も黄金も何もいらぬ。ただお前の微笑みがもう一度見たいだけなのだ。
Kinzo choked, apparently in great pain. Kanon got closer and tried to pat his master's back, but Kinzo signaled that he didn't want to.
私が黄金の隠し場所をわざわざ人目に触れるように晒したかわかるか？
いえ。
魔法の力はリスクで決まるからだ。ベアトリーチェの黄金を暴こうとする人間が多ければ多いほど、その危険が高まれば高まるほどに、それでもなお成就できた時、魔法の力は偉大なる奇跡を起こせるのだ。魔法とはつまりゲームなのだよ。優れている者が勝者になるのではない。勝者には魔法が与えられ優れるのだ。わかるか？生命の奇跡が数億分の1という神々しい確率に勝利するからこそ与えられるようにな。お前には少し難しいか。
申し訳ございません。
よい。つまりはこういうことだ。ベアトリーチェの碑文の謎を解いた者には、私が築き上げてきた全てを与えよう。富、名誉、黄金、そして後宮家の家督。私が築き上げてきた全てだ。その謎に挑む資格があるのは何も私の息子たちだけとは限らぬ。たとえお前であっても、その謎を解けたなら全てを得る資格があるのだ。
はい。ですが僕にはあのような難しい謎は分かりかねます。
無論だ。難解に作った。だがお前も挑め。それが我が魔法の奇跡を呼ぶ糧となる。誰もが挑み誰にも至れなかったらその時はその時。だが奇跡が集い魔法の力が生まれたならその時こそベアトリーチェがよみがえるのだ。だからお前も挑め。誰もが挑め。そして我が魔法に力を捧げるのだ。わかるな。
Revive.
Huh.
はい。努力します。
For a long while, Kinzo repeatedly muttered to himself, agitated and grabbing onto his head. Kanon stayed where he was, alert and unmoving, until he was given the next order from his master.
If you think this is getting crazy, wait until it just coming up. Something's gonna.
Oh boy.
Yeah?
Oh man, I don't know if I'm ready, man. I don't know. Kinzo finally realized this.
もうよい。下がれ。酒棚に菓子の袋があろう。 ダチンに持っていくがよい。
結構です。僕は家具ですから。
There it is again. There's totally some weird, like, you are an object as a servant, like indoctrination stuff going on here. You are furniture. Oh, that just...
家具は菓子など食わぬか。道理だが、ならばもう下がれ。
はい。失礼いたします。
Cannon bowed and left the study. As the door was closed, a heavy locking noise resounded. But that was not the sound of Cannon locking the door. It was the door locking automatically. No one could enter without Kinzo's permission, and once they left, they could not enter again. It was a mechanism that Kinzo, unable to trust his blood relatives, had created to lock himself up in his own study and isolate himself from the outside world. The only ones he could trust now were not the sons who shared his blood, but those servants who called themselves furniture.
南條先生、いかがなさいましたか。
ああ、源氏さん。
Back in front of the portrait.
いや、何、居場所がなくなりましてな。
With a bitter laugh, Nanjo turned to face the door to the parlor. It seemed that because of that motion, Genji understood what Nanjo wanted to say. For the most part, Genji also understood the family's situation. It must have made him want to frown, knowing that right now in the parlor, the master he served was being discussed so disrespectfully. But it would have been very difficult to gather that from his indifferent expression.
しかし、私には分かりませんな。どうして金蔵さんはこんな挑発的なものを描かれたのでしょう。
Nanjo looked at the portrait of Beatrice. No. He actually directed his gaze beneath the portrait, at the plate with the epitaph.
I know you've been dying just to know what that epitaph says, I bet.
Yeah, I have. I thought maybe they had said it earlier and I missed it, but they just skipped over it.
They said the first line and then they skipped the rest.
深いお考えがあってのことと。
金蔵さんのチェスは昔から随分と遠大な読みで不正や時には理解できない一手さえ、私ごとき凡庸では何を目論まれているのか皆目見当もつきませんな。
私はこれを親方様の何かの遺言状ではないかと考えています。それを理解できた者に財産や家督をお譲りになられようということなのでしょう。
Well, that's what he said.
つまり私のようなよそ者に解かれてしまう前に兄弟4人で協力し合って謎を解けということではないかということですな。金蔵さんは息子さんたちのことを口悪く罵ってはいますが、なんとか兄弟が仲を取り戻してほしいと願われているのかもしれません。
Kinzo is trying to teach his children about the value of friendship and love. According to Nanjo. If, as Nanjo said, this epitaph had been written to repair the relationship between the siblings, how heartwarming that would be. However, Nanjo and Genji both knew that this was one thing that could never be the case. Here were the two who held the longest relationship with Kinzo, more trusted than his blood relatives, and even they could not guess at Kinzo's true motive.
親方様は一族のものでなくとも謎に挑む資格があると常々おっしゃっています。南條先生はいかがですか。
いやいや、この老いぼれには少々難解が過ぎますな。実は以前この碑文を手帳に記しましてな、夜な夜な寝る前に挑んでみたのですが実に難しい。お迎えが来るまでの間ゆっくり楽しむことができそうです。源氏さんこそ いかがですか？
私めは親方様にお仕えする家具に過ぎません。
There it is again.
黄金も財産も。
やれやれ、本当に謙虚な方です。だからこそ金蔵さんもあなたには心を許されるのでしょ
う。ならば光栄なことです。
As Nanjo lightly laughed in response, he once again looked at the epitaph.
懐かしき故郷を貫く鮎の川、黄金鏡を目指す者よ、これを下りて鍵を探せ。
Behold this. Oh, oops.
Sorry.
No.
That which is written on the epitaph of the portrait of my beloved witch, Beatrice, is as follows. Behold the sweet fish river running through my beloved home of old. You who seek the golden land, follow its path downstream in search of the key. As you travel down it, you will see a village. In that village, look for the shore the two speak of. There the key to the golden land sleeps. You who laid hand upon the key must journey as follows to the golden land. On the first twilight, sacrifice the 6 chosen by the key. On the second twilight, those who remain shall tear apart the 2 who are close. What? On the third twilight, those who remain shall praise my noble name. On the fourth twilight, gouge the head and kill. Okay, what the shit is going on right now? On the fifth twilight, gouge the chest and kill. On the sixth twilight, gouge the stomach and kill. On the seventh twilight, gouge the knee and kill. On the eighth twilight, gouge the leg and kill. On the ninth twilight, the witch revives, and none shall be left alive. On the 10th twilight, the journey ends, and you shall reach the home of the gold. The witch shall praise the wise and bestow 4 treasures. 1 shall be all of the golden land's gold. 1 resurrects all the dead people's souls. 1 even revives all the love they possessed. And 1 for the witch to eternally rest. Rest in peace, my beloved witch, Beatrice.
The epitaph. Behold.
Wow.
Behold the epitaph.
That is, I don't even know what to say.
You don't even know what to say?
I'm just,
第10の番に旅は終わり。
Shut up, Adler.
Yeah, get out of here.
What do you think, when you hear like that jingle noise, it means something popped up. So the tips, you can see the entire epitaph. It's in the tips, so
yeah,
it must mean it might
it's
be important. Possibly,
considering how long it took for them to tell us what it actually is.
Thoughts?
I don't even know where to start. I mean, we could go through this and like try to rip everything apart, but it would just be speculation, and I don't think there would be a lot of evidence to support anything.
It would all be speculation as of now, you're saying? You think?
Yeah. I mean, there's some things that we can...
That's true. As of now, it would probably all be speculation, but one thing I am going to tell you now is this epitaph... The epitaph is solvable. Going through it.
From this point where we are right now?
Not from this point. Well, I don't think anybody could solve it from this point where we are now.
Okay.
But as we go through, before we start getting answers to some of the mysteries that arise as we're playing through the first half of the game, there will be a point where I guarantee you it is possible to solve this epitaph. It's very requires some outside the box thinking. I'll tell you that, but it should be somewhat obvious when the point is, and it's not for a while.
Yeah,
like a long while until we'll have pretty much the background information to solve it. But I mean, once at that point we know that it is solvable, I mean, you definitely could if you give it a shot.
Yeah,
Give
I
it
guess.
a long shot.
I guess we'd have to see.
Oh yeah.
The one question I have right now, just looking at it from the start, is what is his beloved home of old?
His beloved home of old. Yeah, that's a very good question.
Because, I mean, how long has he been on the island? Could that be considered his beloved home of old?
This is the first episode or first chapter, whatever. I said there are 8 chapters to this game. The first four are the question arcs, basically, and the second 4 are the answer arcs that start giving the answers.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, towards the end of chapter 4, I think, is when you should have enough. Either 3 or 4 is when you should have enough information. I think it's 3 actually.
Okay.
You should have enough information to really start ripping this apart.
Okay.
And figuring it out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
So there's a while to go, but the guys that did this before us, that their playthrough just ended, they did it in the same fashion. One of them had played Umineko and one of them hadn't, and the guy that hadn't played Umineko actually managed to solve the Epitaph. And it's really tough. A lot of people don't end up solving it. I'd say like maybe less than 5% of the people that play the game end up solving it because it's really tough. But
yeah,
it is solvable.
Huh.
Yeah, definitely something to keep a lookout for.
I'm gonna have to like start sit here with a notebook and start taking notes or something.
Yeah, it's probably interesting concept.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool.
Oh
well,
yeah.